The aluminum water bottle slammed onto her tray with enough force to splash cold drops across her worn hoodie. "Economy standards have really fallen," the voice boomed from first class, cutting through the cabin like a blade. Ava Reyes didn't flinch. She'd been shot down over hostile territory, tortured for 72 hours, and lived to fly again. But sitting in seat 22C watching privilege mock her existence, while her own government kept her buried in shadows, this cut deeper than any wound. The woman they called Night Wraith, who'd saved Air Force One from certain destruction, was about to be exposed in the cruelest way possible. "Hey everyone, I'm about to share one of the most shocking aviation stories you'll ever hear. Stick with me until the end and drop a comment about where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel." The recycled air in the Boeing 737 carried the familiar cocktail of coffee cleaning solution and barely contained anxiety that marked every commercial flight from New York to D.C. Ava Reyes had memorized this particular smell over the past 18 months. 18 months of flying this route, every other week, always in economy, always in the same worn gray hoodie that had become her armor against recognition. She'd chosen seat 22C deliberately, not quite the back where troublemakers sat, not the emergency exit that required interaction, but deep enough in economy to remain invisible. The aisle seat gave her movement options old habits, from a life the world thought had ended in a fireball over the Black Sea 3 years ago. "Sir, you'll need to return to your seat." The flight attendant's voice carried that practiced firmness that came from dealing with first-class passengers who thought their premium tickets included reign over the entire aircraft. Grant Mercer's Italian leather shoes, probably worth more than most people's monthly rent, planted themselves next to row 22. His Tom Ford suit caught the harsh cabin lighting as he gestured dramatically at the economy section, like a king surveying peasants. "I'm making a point to my colleagues about the decline of service standards. Look at this." His manicured hand swept toward Ava. "This is what happens when airlines stop maintaining basic passenger screening." The words hung in the pressurized air. Ava kept her eyes on the safety card she'd been pretending to read, though she'd memorized every emergency procedure on every commercial aircraft in service. Her peripheral vision, trained to track multiple bogies at Mach 2, caught the slow turn of heads, the sudden interest of bored passengers grateful for drama that wasn't their own. "Sir, please." The flight attendant, whose name tag read Mark, tried again, but his heart wasn't in it. Ava had noticed his dismissive glances when she'd boarded, the way he'd directed the family with first-class tickets around her, as if poverty might be contagious. "1 second, Mark." Grant's voice carried that particular tone of someone used to buying silence. "My friend Kay is doing a piece on travel standards. Kay, get this." The woman who emerged from first class moved like a predator who'd spotted wounded prey. Kay Lynn's rose gold iPhone 15 Pro was already recording her followers, all 2.3 million of them, about to witness what she'd later call content gold. Her Bottega Veneta dress whispered money with every step. "Oh my God, Grant, you're so bad." Kay laughed, but her phone was already focused on Ava. "Okay, loves, you have to see this. Seat 22C is giving serious thrift store energy. Like, did someone lose a bet?" The livestream comments started flowing immediately, hearts and laughing emojis flooding the screen. Ava could see them reflected in the window she'd trained herself to read, reversed text, at distance, useful for reading enemy tail numbers in her mirrors during dogfights. LMAOOO, she really wore that on a plane. Someone check if she paid for that seat. Security risk much. Ava's fingers found the worn edge of her father's dog tag hidden beneath her hoodie. He'd died in Afghanistan when she was 12, an Air Force para-rescue jumper who'd given his life pulling 3 Marines from a burning Humvee. She'd worn his tags through flight school, through combat, through that last mission that had officially killed her. The metal was warm against her skin, a reminder of why she'd chosen this life, why she endured this death. "Ma'am, are you traveling alone?" Mark had joined the performance, his senior flight attendant, Pins, catching the light as he leaned over her, voice loud enough to carry. "Sometimes our booking system has glitches. If you're not in the right seat." "I'm in my assigned seat." Ava's voice was steady, pitched low. She'd learned long ago that silence invited escalation, but confrontation drew attention. The middle path calm acknowledgement usually diffused situations. Usually. "She speaks," Grant announced to his growing audience. Several passengers had their phones out, now the modern Coliseum demanding its gladiators. "Marco, I think you should check her ticket. My company does airline security consulting, and this fits the profile of Grant Mercer Financial Systems." An older woman's crisp voice cut in. Clara Voss had materialized from business class, her Chanel suit as sharp as her tone. "I've seen your SEC filings. Interesting how someone under federal investigation for insider trading is suddenly concerned about security." Grant's face flushed, but he recovered quickly. "Clara, always a pleasure. You were just harassing a passenger." Clara's smile could have frozen jet fuel. "Though I agree the airline should maintain standards, perhaps starting with keeping first-class passengers in first class." For a moment, Ava thought she'd found an ally. Then Clara's eyes swept over her, and the assessment there was clinical dismissive. "Though perhaps some discretion in ticket sales wouldn't hurt. This is the New York to DC shuttle, not a Greyhound bus." The laughter that rippled through the cabin had a different quality now, meaner, more unified. Ava had become the thing that brought them together, the common enemy that made first class and business class forget their own petty hierarchies. "Ladies and gentlemen, please return to your seats. We're expecting some weather ahead." Captain Ward's voice through the intercom carried an unusual tension. Ava's trained ear caught it immediately. This wasn't about weather. She'd heard that tone before, in cockpits over hostile territory, when radar had painted something unexpected. The crowd dispersed reluctantly, but Kay kept her phone up, narrating to her followers as she walked backward. "Don't worry, loves. I've got the perfect angle from 3A. This flight just got interesting." As they settled, Ava noticed the man in 21D hadn't joined the spectacle. He was older, maybe 70, with the kind of posture that came from decades of military bearing fighting against age. His eyes, she'd seen eyes like that before, in the ready rooms, before missions, in the faces of those who'd seen too much to judge anyone by their clothing. He gave her the slightest nod. She returned it. Mark reappeared with the water service, his movements sharp with petty authority. When he reached her row, he didn't ask if she wanted anything. The bottle came down, hard water splashing across her tray table, droplets hitting her hoodie and the passenger in 22B. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Mark said, voice dripping false concern. "These economy trays are so unstable. Perhaps if you'd dressed more appropriately, you'd be more comfortable with the service standards back here." The teenager in 22B pressed himself against the window, trying to disappear. His mother in 22A had that frozen look of someone calculating whether intervention would make things worse. Ava reached for the thin napkin dispenser, slowly cleaning the water. Her movements were economical, precise. The same hands that had once pulled 9 Gs in a vertical climb, now carefully wiping cheap plastic. "No harm done." "No harm done," Mark repeated, mimicking her flat tone. "Well, isn't that nice? Lily, come clean this up properly." The junior flight attendant who appeared looked barely old enough to be out of training. Her hands shook slightly as she knelt to wipe the floor where water had dripped. "I'm sorry about—" "It's fine," Ava said quietly, meeting the young woman's eyes. "Not your fault." Lily's smile was grateful, but confused. Why was this passenger being so nice when she had every right to complain 15 minutes past? Ava felt the aircraft adjust, heading by 2 degrees imperceptible to most, but her inner ear was calibrated to notice such things. They were no longer on the standard arrival path for Reagan National. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Ward. We've received a notification from Air Traffic Control about some routing changes. Nothing to be concerned about, but I'll need all flight attendants to secure the cabin at this time." The tone was all wrong. Ava had heard Captain Ward's announcements on dozens of flights. The woman was ex-Navy flew S-3 Vikings before moving to commercial aviation. This wasn't her routine voice. This was her combat voice. The ACAR system chimed that digital heartbeat that connected the aircraft to the world below. Most passengers didn't know the sound, but Ava did. She watched Mark check the message printer, his face shifting from smug satisfaction to confusion. "What does this mean?" Lily whispered, reading over his shoulder. "Probably nothing. Some nonsense about a passenger verification." Mark's eyes found Ava. "Though I think I know which passenger needs verifying." He said it loud enough for the surrounding rows to hear. The middle-aged man in 23C leaned forward. "Is there a problem with her?" "I can't discuss airline security matters," Mark replied, which was somehow worse than an accusation. "But rest assured, we're trained to handle all situations." The cabin energy shifted. Fear was viral at 30,000 feet, spreading through recycled air and confined spaces. Ava felt the eyes on her, the suspicion building like storm clouds. "Maybe she's on a watch list," someone whispered. "She hasn't moved once, just sits there." That's what they're trained to do, blend in. Kay's livestream was gaining viewers exponentially. The comments scrolled faster than anyone could read. "OMG terrorist, call the air marshal. This is insane. Kay, get away from her." Ava's breathing remained steady, box breathing 4 counts, in 4 hold, 4 out, 4 hold. The same technique that had kept her conscious when her F-22 had taken a missile hit, when she'd had to eject at 43,000 feet into hostile territory. The same breathing that had sustained her through 3 days of torture before the extraction team had found her. Another heading change. 5 degrees west. They were being vectored around something, or toward something. "Excuse me." The voice belonged to the man in 21D. He'd turned slightly, speaking low enough that only Ava could hear. "Master Sergeant Harlan Pike, retired. Air Force 73 to 93. I know that breathing pattern, and I know those hands." Ava's hands were resting on her thighs, thumbs tucked, fingers curved, pilot's hands ready for stick and throttle. "You flew," Pike continued. It wasn't a question. Before Ava could respond, the cabin lights flickered, not a power issue, but the pilots cycling through electrical buses, checking systems, combat preparation dressed as routine maintenance. "Oh my God, the lights," Kay narrated dramatically. "Guys, something is definitely happening. The crew looks super tense." Grant had unbuckled and was half standing despite the seatbelt sign. "I demand to just know what's going on. My company has contracts with Homeland Security. If there's a threat, sir, sit down immediately." Captain Ward's voice cut through the cabin speakers, sharp as a blade. "All passengers remain seated with seatbelts fastened. We are following air traffic control instructions." But Grant was beyond listening, his privilege a shield against common sense. He pointed at Ava. "It's her, isn't it? Check her. I bet she doesn't even have proper documentation." The accusation landed like a match in gasoline. The cabin erupted in nervous chatterphones, out everyone suddenly an expert on aviation security. Clara Voss's voice cut through. "For liability reasons, the airline should isolate the suspected individual. I'm recording this for potential legal action if passenger safety is compromised. I'm calling my lawyer, another voice added. There's an air marshal on every flight, right? Where are they? Ava remained still, but her eyes tracked everything. Exits potential weapons. The combat-age males who might intervene, the mothers with children who'd need protection if things went sideways. Old habits, old training, the checklist that never stopped running in her head. That's when she saw them. 2 specks outside, approaching from the 7 o'clock position. Her trained eye recognized the closure rate, the formation spacing. Fighters. Moving at probably 400 knots, vectors converging with their flight path. Pike saw her looking and turned to the window. His sharp intake of breath was barely audible. Those aren't commercial. What? The teenager in 22B pressed his face to the window. What aren't commercial? Nothing, Pike said quickly, but his hands had gripped his armrests, knuckles white. The fighters were closing fast now, maybe 2 miles out. Ava recognized the distinctive diamond wing planform, F-22 Raptors, the aircraft she'd flown for 6 years, the aircraft she'd supposedly died in. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Ward started, then stopped. The pause lasted 3 heartbeats. We're going to have some military aircraft joining our flight path. This is a standard security escort. Please remain calm and seated. Standard security escort. The words might as well have been, unprecedented situation we're not trained for. The cabin exploded. Military aircraft. Are we being hijacked? Check her bag. Check her now. Mark was already moving down the aisle, his face flushed with righteous purpose. Ma'am, I need to inspect your belongings, for the safety of all passengers. You don't have that authority, Ava said calmly. I have every authority when passenger safety. The F-22s swept past the windows so close that people screamed. They were in perfect formation, one slightly high, one low, tactical spacing that allowed overlapping fields of fire while maintaining visual contact. The lead aircraft rolled slightly, exposing its weapons bay for just a moment. Empty, but the message clear. We're armed, we're watching. Kay dropped her phone. It clattered on the floor, the live stream showing ceiling, while her followers went insane in the comments. Those are Raptors. Someone who'd played too many video games announced. 5th-generation fighters. They don't escort civilian flights unless what? Grant demanded. Unless there's a national security issue. Every eye in the visible cabin turned to Ava. Mark reached for her bag. I'm taking this to the galley for inspection. No. Ava's hand moved not fast, not aggressive, but with the kind of certainty that made Mark freeze. You're going to step back, return to your station, and let the professionals handle this. Professionals, you think? The radio crackled to life. Not the normal intercom, but the emergency frequency broadcasting through the cabin speakers something that wasn't supposed to happen. A breach of protocol that meant someone in the cockpit had made a very deliberate decision. Guardian 1 to commercial flight, authenticate passenger Night Wraith 22 Charlie. The call sign hit the cabin like a physical force. Night Wraith. Military call signs weren't random. They were earned usually in combat, often in blood. Ava closed her eyes for a moment. 3 years of carefully constructed anonymity, 3 years of being nobody evaporating in 5 seconds of radio traffic. Did they just say, Night Wraith? That's a military call sign. Pike's voice cut through the chaos, loud and commanding. Everyone shut up and sit down, now! The authority in his tone. Master Sergeant to the bone created a bubble of silence. The radio crackled again. Commercial flight Night Wraith 22 Charlie, please respond if aboard. Captain Ward's voice carefully controlled. Guardian 1, this is Captain Ward. Stand by for passenger verification. Ava stood slowly. The The movement drew every eye, every phone camera swinging toward her like weapons acquiring a target. She reached into her tote bag. Mark stepped back involuntarily and pulled out a piece of aluminum, no bigger than a credit card. Worn, scratched with numbers and letters that meant nothing to civilians, but everything to those who'd earned the right to know. She walked to the galley where the interphone handset waited. Lily handed it to her wordlessly, eyes wide. Night Wraith 2-2. Charlie, Ava said into the handset, her voice carrying through the silent cabin. Authentication Tango Alpha November 779er. Standing by for verification. The response was immediate. Night Wraith 2-2, Charlie Guardian. One confirms authentication. Be advised, Shepard Actual is monitoring. Shepard Actual, the President's military call sign. Someone in first class fainted. The sound of a body hitting the floor barely registered over the collective intake of breath. 2-2 Charlie copies all, Ava responded, then handed the phone back to Lily. Thank you. She turned to walk back to her seat and found the entire cabin transformed. Where there had been mockery and suspicion, now there was awe and fear in equal measure. Phones tracked her movement like she was a celebrity or a ghost. Grant's mouth opened and closed without sound. Kay was scrambling for her phone, hands shaking. Clara Voss had gone pale, her legal threats dying in her throat. Mark couldn't finish. I'm passenger 22C, Ava said quietly, moving past him, returning to my seat as instructed. But Pike was standing now, his old body at attention. As she passed, he rendered a perfect salute, not required, not regulation for a civilian flight, but absolutely necessary in this moment. It's an honor, ma'am, he said quietly. Ava paused, returned the salute with precision that spoke of years of practice. The honor is mine, Master Sergeant. She sat back down. The teenager in 22B was pressed against the window, staring at her like she'd grown wings. His mother had tears streaming down her face. Are you really? The woman whispered. I'm nobody, Ava replied softly. Just following instructions like everyone else. The radio crackled again. This time a different voice, older, commanding, unmistakable to anyone who'd watched a presidential address in the last 2 years. Night Wraith 2-2. Charlie, this is Shepard Actual. Authentication Quebec Zulu. Please verify. The President of the United States was personally authenticating her identity. The cabin had gone so quiet that the engine noise seemed deafening. Ava stood again, every movement watched by 100 eyes and dozen cameras. She took the handset. Lily offered the young flight attendant's hands, shaking so badly she nearly dropped it. Shepard Actual Night Wraith 2-2. Charlie. Quebec Zulu authenticated. Victor Echo Romeo Delta Echo, sir. A pause. Then, it's good to hear your voice, Major. We thought we'd lost you. Major. The rank confirmation rippled through the cabin. Not just military, but a field-grade officer. Not just a pilot, but someone important enough for the President to personally verify. Operational security required it, sir, Ava responded. Understood. Be advised we're adjusting your flight path. Guardian flight will maintain escort. We'll talk on the ground. A copy all, sir. The connection ended. Ava handed the phone back and returned to her seat through an aisle that had become a gauntlet of stares, whispers, and hurriedly lowered phones. Mark stood frozen in the galley. His earlier authority evaporated. You didn't know, Ava said simply. No one was supposed to. But the water, I was so... You were doing what you thought was right. It was more grace than he deserved, and they both knew it. Captain Ward's voice returned steadier now, but tinged with awe. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our descent into Reagan National. We'll be landing on runway 19 with a military escort. There will be vehicles on the tarmac. Please remain seated after landing until directed by security personnel. Through the window, the F-22s had taken position one high above one parallel, creating a protective bubble around the civilian aircraft. As they descended through 20,000 feet, Ava saw what was coming from the north. The distinctive light blue and white of a modified 747 call sign Air Force One when the president was aboard, which he clearly was. It was adjusting course, converging with their path an honor guard that cost taxpayers $200,000 per flight hour to operate. Is that? The teenager couldn't finish the question. Yes, Ava said quietly. For you? She didn't answer, but the silence was confirmation enough. Kay had recovered her phone and was live streaming again, but her commentary had changed. Guys, I don't know what to say. I was so horrible to her. We all were. And she's... God, do you know what Night Wraith means? I'm Googling. Oh my God! Oh my God! She was reading from her screen, voice shaking. Night Wraith 2-2. Classified incident Black Sea 2021. F-22 pilot engaged multiple hostile aircraft to protect Air Force One from a coordinated attack. Pilot reportedly killed in action after taking a missile meant for the president's plane. The cabin erupted again, but differently this time. Not fear or mockery, but the kind of shocked recognition that came with realizing how badly you'd misjudged someone. She saved the president's life. She's supposed to be dead. Why is she in economy? Why is she even on a commercial flight? Grant finally found his voice. This is impossible. If she's military, if she's that important, why didn't she say anything? Why let us... Because operational security matters more than your opinion, Pike said sharply. Because real warriors don't need to announce themselves, because she probably had orders. But I live-streamed her to millions of people. Kay was panicking now. I've blown her cover. Oh God, what have I done? Ava turned slightly. You did what you always do. The question is what you'll do next. It wasn't absolution, but it wasn't condemnation either. It was the kind of measured response that came from someone who'd faced worse than social media humiliation. The aircraft banked gently, lining up for approach. Through the windows, Washington, D.C., spread below monuments to democracy and power, the Capitol Dome catching the afternoon sun, the Pentagon, a geometric fortress across the river. And somewhere down there, people were scrambling protocols, activating a machinery of government lurching into motion because Night Wraith 2-2 Charlie had been found. Major Reyes, Captain Ward's voice through the intercom speaking directly to her. Would you like to come to the flight deck for landing? It was an invitation no civilian would ever receive a breach of post-9/11 security protocols that required extraordinary circumstances to override. Thank you, Captain, but no, Ava replied loud enough for the nearby Rose to hear. Your aircraft, your landing. I'm just a passenger. The respect in that response, one pilot to another acknowledging command authority, wasn't lost on those who understood. Roger that, Major. It's an honor to have you aboard. The landing gear extended with a mechanical whine. Below, Reagan National had been transformed. Emergency vehicles lined the taxiways, not for disaster, but for protection. Black SUVs with government plates. Military vehicles that had no business at a civilian airport. They're treating her like a head of state, someone whispered. She's more important than that, Pike replied. Heads of state are replaceable. Heroes aren't. The F-22s peeled off as they descended through 5,000 feet. Their job done, replaced by helicopters. Secret Service Blackhawks that took station around the airport perimeter. Air Force One had descended parallel to them, timing its approach to land simultaneously on the parallel runway a choreography of power and protection. Mark appeared again, having found some semblance of composure. "Major, is there anything you need?" "Lily handled everything perfectly," Ava said, nodding to the junior flight attendant. "She's a credit to your crew." The implied contrast with Mark's behavior hung in the air, unspoken, but understood. The touchdown was gentle, Captain Ward showing off just a little, the kind of smooth landing that pilots reserved for when they knew history was watching. As they taxied, the Escort became visible vehicles, matching their speed, maintaining formation. "Ladies and gentlemen, remain seated," Captain Ward announced. "We'll be directed to a secure area of the terminal." Through the window, Ava could see figures emerging from the vehicles, Secret Service agents in tactical gear, Air Force personnel in dress uniforms, and one figure in a flight suit with stars on his shoulders, waiting at what would be their parking position. "That's General Morrison," someone who watched too much news announced. "Air Force Chief of Staff. He's here for her." The aircraft stopped. The engines wound down. Outside, a stairs truck was already in position, not a jet bridge, but mobile stairs that would allow them to control who got off and when. The main cabin door opened. The first person through wasn't airport security or airline personnel, but a Secret Service agent whose eyes swept the cabin before locking on to Ava. "Major Reyes." "Yes." "Agent Cole, we need you to come with us immediately." Ava grabbed her tote bag, the same one Mark had tried to confiscate. As she moved toward the aisle, Grant suddenly stood. "Wait, I need to apologize. No, you don't," Ava said simply. "You showed who you are. That's enough." The dismissal was complete, final. Grant sank back into his seat, but Pike stood again, this old warrior with arthritis and memories. "Major, before you go, my grandson wants to be a pilot. Wants to serve. What do I tell him?" Ava paused at the question, considering. "Tell him that service isn't about being recognized. It's about being ready when called. Tell him the view from 50,000 feet makes everything else seem small. And tell him—" She smiled slightly. "Tell him Night Wraith says the sky is worth the sacrifice." She moved toward the door, but Kay suddenly called out, "Major, what you said, what do I do next? How do I fix this?" Ava turned back one last time. "You've got 2 million followers watching right now. What you do with that audience in the next 5 minutes will define who you really are. Choose wisely." Then she was gone, following Agent Cole down the stairs into a phalanx of protection. At the bottom, General Morrison saluted sharply. She returned it, and they embraced briefly, the kind of embrace that spoke of shared loss, shared secrets. "Ava, thank God. When the intel came through that you'd been compromised—" "It was bound to happen eventually, sir. We've got a situation. The same group that tried to take down Eagle 1 3 years ago, they're active again. We need you." "I know, sir. I knew the moment those Raptors showed up." They moved toward a waiting vehicle, but Morrison paused. "You could have identified yourself immediately, avoided all that humiliation." Ava looked back at the aircraft, where faces pressed against every window, watching her disappear into history. "Humiliation is just another form of camouflage, sir, and it showed me something important." "What's that? That senior airman Lily Chen has the temperament for combat aviation. Might want to fast-track her application to the academy." Morrison smiled. "Still mentoring even from seat 22C. "Especially from seat 22C, sir. That's where you see who people really are." Their vehicle pulled away, followed by the presidential motorcade that had diverted from whatever schedule it had been following Ava, saw Kay through the aircraft window phone, raised tears streaming down her face as she spoke to her followers. Whatever she was saying, it looked like truth. In the secure hangar 40 minutes later, With debriefings underway and the machinery of national security spinning around her, Ava found a quiet moment to check her phone. The video had already gone viral. Not just K's, but dozens of perspectives, each showing a different angle of the same story. But it was a text from an unknown number that made her smile. "My grandson watched it all. He says he wants to be like the lady in 22C, who didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Thank you for showing him what quiet strength looks like. H. Pike, MSG Ret." She tucked the phone away and walked back into the Situation Room where generals and spy masters waited. She'd been Night Wraith for 6 years, a ghost for 3, and a nobody in 22C for 18 months. Time to be something else. Time to finish what had started in the Black Sea 3 years ago, when she'd chosen to take a missile meant for someone else and disappear into the shadows rather than accept a medal that would have made her a target. But first, she had one request. "General Morrison." "Yes, Major. I want Captain Ward and her crew commended. Officially. They handled an impossible situation with professionalism. Consider it done. And sir, when this is over, however it ends, I want to go back to being nobody." Morrison studied her for a long moment. "You know that's impossible now. The whole world has seen who you are." Ava thought of Seat 22C, of the view from the back of the plane of the America that flew coach and struggled and endured without recognition. "No, sir. They've seen what I did. Who I am is still my choice." "And who are you, Major?" She considered the question, thinking of her father's dog tags still warm against her chest, of the girl who'd grown up on food stamps and flew jets worth more than some nation's GDP, of the warrior who'd chosen obscurity over acclaim. "I'm someone who knows that the best view isn't from first class, sir. It's from wherever you can see clearly. And right now, we've got work to do." Outside Air Force One sat on the tarmac, its presence a reminder of what she'd saved and what she'd sacrificed. In 3 hours, she'd gone from nobody to somebody, to legend. But in her mind, she was already planning the next move, the next mission, the next time she'd have to choose between being seen and being effective. The world had met Night Wraith. But Ava Reyes, the woman who'd sat quietly in 22C while privilege mocked her existence, she was already gone, transformed into something else, something necessary. The ghost was dead. The warrior was back. And somewhere in economy class, seat 22C, on a different flight, another quiet hero was probably enduring their own humiliation, holding their own secrets, waiting for their own moment to choose between pride and purpose. Ava knew which choice they'd make. Heroes always did. The secure hangar at Reagan National hummed with controlled chaos, fluorescent lights, casting harsh shadows across the assembled personnel. Ava stood at the center of it all, still in her worn gray hoodie, a deliberate contrast to the dress uniforms and dark suits surrounding her. General Morrison had offered her a change of clothes 3 times. 3 times she'd declined. The hoodie wasn't just clothing anymore. It was evidence, a testament to who she'd been for the last 18 months. The timeline doesn't make sense. Deputy Director Sarah Chen of the CIA was saying her tablet displaying a web of connections that looked like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. You supposedly died 3 years ago. The wreckage was confirmed DNA evidence. Planted, Ava interrupted quietly. Part of Operation Ghost Protocol. We needed them to believe I was dead. Them being Agent Cole leaned forward, his Secret Service training making him catalog every micro-expression on her face. The Crimson Wing, the same cell that orchestrated the Black Sea attempt on Air Force One. Ava's fingers unconsciously traced the edge of her father's dog tags through the fabric. They had a kill list, Every pilot who'd engaged them, every intelligence officer who'd tracked them. As long as they thought I was alive, others were in danger. Morrison's jaw tightened. So you disappeared. Became nobody. I became everybody, Ava corrected. The invisible people who keep this country running. Janitors with security clearances, night shift workers at critical infrastructure, the ones you pass without seeing. I've been watching listening tracking chatter the way only someone presumed dead can. And today, Chen's voice carried an edge. Your cover blown to millions on social media that wasn't planned. No. Ava's eyes found the monitor showing news coverage her face captured from dozen angles already being dissected by talking heads. Someone wanted me exposed, someone who knew I'd be on that flight. The revelation landed like a tactical nuke. Cole's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon. You're saying this was deliberate? Someone inside Grant Mercer? The name fell from Ava's lips like a verdict. His company, Mercer Financial Systems, has defense contracts, but more importantly, they have connections to shell companies I've been tracking, companies that funnel money to interesting places. Chen was already typing, her fingers flying across the tablet. Mercer's under SEC investigation for insider trading, but there's nothing about... She stopped, face paling. Oh God. 3 of his subsidiary companies have contracts with firms that supply aviation software to commercial airlines. Including passenger manifest systems, Ava said. Someone fed him my seat assignment, probably told him just enough to make him curious, confrontational. They knew his personality, knew he'd make a scene. And they knew Kay Lin would be on that flight live streaming everything. Morrison slammed his fist on the table. They used civilians as weapons. Asymmetric warfare, Ava agreed. Expose me without firing a shot, without any fingerprints leading back to them. Let social media do what bullets couldn't. Ma'am, a young Air Force lieutenant appeared at the door, tablet in hand. You need to see this. It's from the aircraft. The screen showed the interior of the plane they'd just left. Passengers were being interviewed by FBI agents, but the camera focused on Mark, the senior flight attendant. He was sobbing, shoulders shaking, as he spoke to an agent. I assaulted her, he was saying. The water bottle, I slammed it down on purpose. I wanted to humiliate her, and she could have had me arrested, could have destroyed me, and she just said it was fine. She protected me even after... Ava turned away from the screen. He's not the enemy. He's just what they counted on, predictable human prejudice. Major Reyes. A new voice, crisp and British. Everyone turned as a woman in an elegant suit entered her bearing, suggesting diplomatic corps. Margaret Thornberry, British Intelligence, MI6. The Brits are involved. Cole looked bewildered. The Crimson Wing has no borders, Agent Cole, Thornberry replied smoothly. And Major Reyes has friends in many places. We've been monitoring chatter since the Black Sea incident. 48 hours ago, we intercepted communications suggesting something significant would happen today. And you didn't warn us. Morrison's voice could have frozen hellfire. We tried. Your official channels dismissed it as unlikely. After all, Thornberry's smile was razor-sharp. Major Reyes was dead. Why would anyone target a ghost? Ava stepped forward. What else did you intercept? Thornberry pulled out a secure phone showing an encrypted message. This came through diplomatic channels 6 hours ago. The Wraith rises at twilight. The shepherd cannot protect what he cannot see. The Crimson Wing spreads across the Atlantic. They're planning something bigger, Ava translated immediately. My exposure was just the opening move. But what's the end game? Chen demanded. Before Ava could answer, alarms began blaring through the hangar. Red lights bathed everything in hellish tones as Secret Service agents drew weapons, forming protective positions. "ThreatCon Delta!" someone shouted. "We have unauthorized aircraft approaching DC airspace." Morrison grabbed a secure phone, barking orders. On the main screen, radar showed 3 blips approaching from the east, moving fast, ignoring all air traffic control commands. Commercial aircraft, the radar operator reported. 3 separate flights, all declaring emergencies simultaneously. That's not possible, Cole said. 3 emergencies at once. It's not emergencies, Ava said, understanding flooding through her like ice water. It's a demonstration. They're showing us they can take control of commercial aviation systems. Chen's tablet chimed urgently. She looked down, face going white. Flight 447 from London, Flight 892 from Paris, Flight 1156 from Frankfurt. All 3 have passengers claiming to be Crimson Wing operatives. They're demanding, she swallowed hard, they're demanding Night Wraith surrender herself, or they crash all 3 planes into DC monuments. The hangar went silent, except for the wailing alarms. 3 planes. Hundreds of innocent lives. The weight of it pressed down like atmospheric pressure at altitude. How many souls on board? Ava asked, her voice steady. 837 total, someone reported. Morrison grabbed her arm. You're not seriously considering— Sir, with respect, shut up and let me think. The command in her voice made the 4-star general step back. Ava moved to the radar screen, studying the approach patterns. They're not random. Look at the vectors. She traced lines with her finger. Flight 447 is aimed at the Lincoln Memorial, 892 toward the Capitol, 1156 at the Pentagon. They're forcing us to choose which one to save. We scramble fighters, force them down. You shoot down 3 civilian aircraft over DC. Ava turned on Cole. That's exactly what they want. Either I surrender and they kill me publicly, or we become the monsters who murdered hundreds of innocents. Either way, they win. There has to be another option, Chen insisted. Ava was already moving, grabbing a flight suit from a nearby locker. There is. Get me airborne. Major, you haven't flown in 3 years. I've been flying commercial routes for 18 months, memorizing every approach, every corridor, every emergency procedure. She was stripping off the hoodie, pulling on the flight suit with practiced efficiency. I know these aircraft better than their own pilots right now. Thornberry stepped forward. What's your plan? Those aren't Crimson Wing operatives on those planes. They're scared passengers being fed scripts. The real threat is the hijacked flight control systems. Ava zipped up the suit muscle memory, taking over. Someone get me Major Scott Avery from Cyber Command. Now. The young lieutenant was already on it, and within seconds, Avery's face appeared on screen, the same officer who'd tried to track her down for 3 years, who'd mourned her supposed death. Ava. His voice cracked. My God, you're really— Scott, listen carefully. 3 aircraft, compromised flight systems. Can you trace the control signal? His fingers flew across keyboards off-screen. Already on it. The signal's bouncing through satellites, but it's coming from— That can't be right. Where, Scott? It's coming from inside Reagan National. From the aircraft you just left. Everyone turned to stare at Ava. On the monitor, the Boeing 737 still sat on the tarmac, surrounded by emergency vehicles, passengers still being interviewed. Someone's still on board, Cole said, already moving. Someone who— No. Ava's voice was certain. Not someone. Something. She turned to Chen. Pull up Grant Mercer's company contracts again, the aviation software suppliers. Chen's fingers flew. Here, MFS Technologies subdivision of Mercer Financial Supplies Entertainment System updates to commercial carriers, including— She stopped. Including the airline you flew today. The entertainment system. Ava laughed, but there was no humor in it. They uploaded malware through the seatback screens. Every passenger who touched those screens today became a potential carrier, their devices syncing, spreading the code. But the main payload stayed on the aircraft, using it as a transmission hub. Can you stop it? Morrison demanded. Not from here. Ava was already moving toward the door. I need to get on that plane. It's crawling with FBI. Then they better move. She turned back, and for a moment everyone saw not the woman in economy class, but the warrior who'd taken a missile for the president. General Morrison, I need tactical command authority. Now. Morrison didn't hesitate. Granted. All units Major Reyes has operational command. As they raced across the tarmac in Secret Service vehicles, the three hijacked aircraft continued their approach. 15 minutes until DC airspace, 14 until the point of no return. The 737 loomed ahead, crime scene tape everywhere, FBI agents documenting everything. They scattered as Ava's convoy approached, badges and weapons drawn, until they saw Morrison's stars. Clear the aircraft, Morrison commanded. Everyone out now. Ava was already running up the stairs, Cole and Thornberry behind her. The cabin still smelled of fear and coffee, but now it was empty, ghostly. She moved directly to first class, to seat 3A, where Kay had been sitting. It's here, she said, pulling out the entertainment console. She was live-streaming the entire time, her phone connected to the system via Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Perfect transmission vector. Can you stop it? Ava pulled out a multi-tool, started dismantling the console. Not stop, redirect. She looked up at Cole. Get me a secure line to those three aircraft. Now. While Cole coordinated, Ava worked with surgical precision, exposing wires, tracing connections. Avery was in her earpiece, guiding her through the system architecture. There, he said. The primary transmission node. But Ava, if you disconnect it, the backup triggers and crashes all three immediately, she finished. I know, that's not what we're doing. Then what? She pulled out her phone, the same outdated model she'd carried for 3 years, unremarkable, except for the modifications she'd made during her time underground. We're going to give them exactly what they want. Major Reyes, Cole interrupted. I have the 3 aircraft, audio only. Ava took the handset. This is Night Wraith 22 Charlie to all affected aircraft. I need you to listen very carefully. You're going to hear some strange things in the next few minutes, but I promise you'll land safely. She switched to her command frequency. Scott, I'm uploading new code through my device. It's going to look like I'm surrendering control to them, but you're creating a mirror. Avery breathed, understanding. You're letting them think they have control while actually routing everything through my phone, yes. Her fingers flew across the screen code, scrolling faster than most could read. The same phone that's been collecting intelligence for 18 months, that has every Crimson Wing digital signature cataloged. Ava, Morrison's voice crackled through, 7 minutes to DC airspace. Copy. She finished the upload, watched the authentication process begin. On her screen, 3 aircraft icons blinked from red to yellow. Not safe yet, but no longer fully compromised. Then her phone rang. Unknown number, but she knew who it would be. Hello, Victor, she said calmly. The voice that answered was accented, cultured, amused. Victor Kozlov, the ghost she'd been hunting, the architect of the Black Sea incident. Major Reyes, or should I say, the late Major Reyes. Apparently not late enough for you. Indeed, you've caused me considerable inconvenience. 3 years of believing you dead, only to find you've been hiding among the cattle in economy class. How pedestrian. It worked, didn't it? Until today. His voice hardened. You have 5 minutes to surrender yourself, or 837 people die. Their blood will paint your legacy. No, Victor. Ava's voice was steady as she continued working, rerouting systems, creating digital tripwires. You've already lost. You just don't know it yet. Brave words for... He stopped. On her screen, she could see he'd detected her intrusion into his system. "What are you doing?" "The same thing I did 3 years ago, taking the hit so others don't have to." She entered the final command sequence. "But this time I'm not disappearing." The aircraft icons turned green. All 3 planes suddenly responded to their actual pilot's controls, freed systems restored. She could hear the cheers through the radio pilots reporting successful recovery, beginning emergency descent protocols to get their aircraft on the ground safely. "Impossible," Victor breathed. "You wanted me visible, Victor. Congratulations. The whole world is watching." She stood up, looking out the aircraft window where news vans had gathered cameras trained on the plane. "And they're about to see exactly who you are." Her phone began transmitting not just to law enforcement, but to every major news outlet. 3 years of data evidence financial records photographs. The entire Crimson Wing network exposed in real time. Victor's scream of rage cut off as the connection died. But Ava knew it wasn't over. It never was with men like him. "Major," Cole appeared at her shoulder. "All 3 aircraft are requesting emergency landing. Reagan and Dulles are ready to receive them." "Good." She started to move toward the exit, then stopped. Reached up to the overhead bin 22C's bin and pulled out a small notebook she'd hidden there during the flight. "Almost forgot this." "What is it?" Thornberry asked. 18 months of observations. Every suspicious passenger, every unusual pattern, everything that didn't fit. She handed it to Chen. "Your analysts might find it useful." As they emerged from the aircraft, the assembled crowd erupted. FBI Secret Service military personnel and media all watching her descent down those stairs. But Ava's eyes found different faces in the crowd: the cleaning crew, the baggage handlers, the invisible army that kept everything running. She nodded to them, and they nodded back. They'd known all along that someone was watching. Someone was protecting them from shadows they'd never see. "Major Reyes," a reporter managed to break through the perimeter. "How does it feel to be a hero?" Ava paused, considering. Behind the reporter, she could see one of the hijacked planes touching down safely, emergency slides deploying passengers, evacuating. 837 lives that would continue. "I'm not a hero," she said finally. "I'm just someone who was in the right seat at the right time." The reporter looked confused. "The right seat, 22C, Ava said simply. "You see everything from there." Morrison appeared at her elbow, guiding her toward a waiting vehicle. "The president wants to debrief immediately." "Sir, wait." Ava turned back to where Captain Ward was standing with her crew near the aircraft. The captain who'd maintained control when everything went sideways, who'd trusted a passenger she didn't know. Captain Ward. The naval aviator turned commercial pilot straightened. "Major, thank you for not losing faith, in your aircraft or your passengers." Ward smiled slightly. "Thank you for reminding me why we fly." As Ava's vehicle pulled away, she saw Lily, the junior flight attendant, standing with the crew. The young woman raised her hand in a small wave. Ava returned it, knowing that Lily would never serve water the same way again, would never assume that the quiet passenger in the worn clothes was nobody. But there was one more thing to handle. As they drove, Ava pulled out her phone, found the live stream Kay Lynn had started after she'd left the plane. The influencer was still streaming, tears streaming down her face as she spoke to her followers. "I was so wrong," Kay was saying. "We all were. We judged her by her appearance, by her seat, by our own prejudices. And while we were mocking her, she was prepared to die for us, again." She looked directly into the camera. "I'm donating every penny I've made from social media this year to veterans' charities, and I'm challenging every influencer watching to do the same. We profit from this society. Maybe it's time we gave back to those who preserve it. The stream had over 5 million viewers. The donation counter was already at 6 figures and climbing. Ava smiled slightly, then deleted the app. She'd never needed social media anyway. "Victor's still out there," Morrison said quietly beside her. "I know." Ava watched DC pass by outside monuments to democracy symbols of what she'd sworn to protect. "But he made a mistake today." "What's that?" "He reminded me why I became Night Wraith in the first place." She turned to face him. "And he showed his whole network that I'm not dead. They'll be running now, making mistakes, leaving traces." "You're going after them." "No, sir." Ava leaned back, exhaustion finally catching up. "We're going after them. But first I need to do something." "Name it." "I need to buy a new hoodie. Mine has missile burns now." Morrison laughed, the first genuine laugh she'd heard from him in 3 years. "Major, I'll buy you a whole wardrobe." "Just the hoodie, sir. Anything else would blow my cover for the next time I need to disappear into seat 22C. As they approached the White House, where the president waited with questions, and probably another medal she'd refuse, Ava thought about the passengers from Flight 447-892 and 1156. They'd never know how close they'd come, never know that their lives had hung on code written on a phone in economy class by someone they'd never meet. That was how it should be. Heroes weren't supposed to be visible. They were supposed to be effective. But sometimes, just sometimes, the world needed to see that the person they'd dismissed, humiliated and overlooked, might be the one standing between them and catastrophe. Today had been one of those times. Tomorrow she'd be invisible again. But tonight, Night Wraith 2-2. Charlie had work to finish. Viktor Kozlov thought he'd won by exposing her. He was about to learn that shadows could exist even in spotlight, and that the worst thing you could do to a ghost was prove it was still alive. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, but this time she recognized the code. She answered immediately. "Phoenix Tower. This is Night Wraith." "Ma'am, we have a problem. Remember the operative you tracked in Berlin last year? The one moving weapons through commercial shipping?" "I remember. He just boarded a flight to New York, economy class, seat 14F. Ava smiled grimly. "Send me the details, and book me on the same flight." "What seat, ma'am?" She thought for a moment. 15F, right behind him. Sometimes the best view isn't from 22C. "Copy that, Night Wraith. Booking now." As they pulled through the White House gates, Ava touched her father's dog tags one more time. He'd taught her that service meant sacrifice, that honor lived in shadows, that the greatest victories were the ones no one celebrated. Today had broken all those rules. Tomorrow she'd restore them. But first, she had a president to brief a terrorist network to dismantle, and a promise to keep to the 837 souls who'd almost become casualties in someone else's war. The ghost was dead. The wraith was exposed. But Ava Reyes' daughter, warrior, protector, was very much alive. And she had work to do. The Situation Room beneath the White House hummed with controlled tension, its reinforced walls holding secrets that could topple governments. Ava stood before the massive digital display still in her flight suit, watching red dots proliferate across the world map like a virus spreading. Each dot represented a Crimson Wing operative her exposed data had identified. 43 countries. 217 active cells. The monster she'd forced into daylight was bigger than even she had imagined. President James Shepard entered without fanfare, his security detail fanning out like practiced dancers. He looked older than his 61 years, the weight of office etched in lines around his eyes. But when those eyes found Ava, they softened with something beyond gratitude. Major Reyes. His voice carried the gravity of a man who'd ordered drone strikes and signed death warrants. 3 years ago, you took a missile meant for me. 20 minutes ago, you saved 837 lives. I'm running out of ways to thank you. You could start by not thanking me, sir. Ava turned from the display. Every second we spend on gratitude is a second Victor uses to disappear. Secret Service Agent Cole shifted uncomfortably. Major, you're addressing the president. Who's alive because she chose to die for him? Shepard interrupted. She's earned the right to speak freely. What do you need, Major? I need you to ground every commercial flight using the compromised entertainment systems. That's about 3,000 aircraft worldwide. She pulled up technical specifications on her tablet. Victor's malware is still dormant in most of them, waiting for activation. The economic impact, Treasury Secretary Janet Morrison began, will be nothing compared to 3,000 aircraft becoming weapons. Ava cut her off. We're not talking about crashes. We're talking about precisely coordinated attacks on infrastructure, power grids, nuclear plants, military installations. The room went silent. Defense Secretary Robert Gates leaned forward. You're saying he could? I'm saying he already has the capability. We stopped him from using it today, but the code is still there, evolving, adapting. She pulled up a code fragment on screen. Look at this subroutine. It's learning from our countermeasures, rewriting itself. In 12 hours, my patch won't work anymore. Then we have 12 hours, Shepard said simply. Tell us what you need. Before Ava could respond, the secure door burst open. General Morrison entered, face grim, followed by someone Ava hadn't expected to see, Mark, the senior flight attendant from her flight, still in his airline uniform, but now flanked by FBI agents. What's he doing here? Cole demanded, hand moving to his weapon. He has information, Morrison said. Tell them what you told me. Mark's face was pale, his earlier arrogance completely evaporated. He couldn't meet Ava's eyes as he spoke. After you left the plane, I was cleaning up first class. I found something in seat 2B where that corporate consultant Clara Voss was sitting. He held up an evidence bag containing what looked like a standard phone charger. But it's not what it looks like. Ava took the bag, examining it through the plastic. Her blood went cold. It's a data harvester, military grade. She looked up at Morrison. Where's Clara Voss now? That's the problem, Morrison replied. She disappeared during the evacuation. Her identification was fake. The woman doesn't exist. She exists, Ava said quietly. I've seen her work before. Minsk 2 years ago. Prague last summer. Always different names, always positioned near power. She turned to Mark. Did she say anything? Anything that seemed odd? Mark swallowed hard. She knew things. About you. She said something about seat 22C being perfect for watching everyone while thinking you're invisible. I thought she was just being cruel, but she was telling me she knew exactly who I was. Ava's mind raced. She was Victor's insurance policy. If the public exposure failed, she was there to... She stopped, realization hitting like ice water. Oh God. She recorded everything, every authentication code, every frequency we used. Cole was already on his radio. All units, we need a full sweep of the aircraft. Every recording device, every... Too late, Ava interrupted. She's had 2 hours. The data's already transmitted. She turned to the president. Sir, we need to change every military communication protocol. Now. That's impossible, Gates protested. That would take weeks. We have minutes, Ava countered. She pulled out her phone, showing them something that made even the hardened military officials step back. This is current Crimson Wing chatter. They're mobilizing. Whatever Victor's endgame is, it's happening tonight. Shepard moved to the direct military command console. All forces DEFCON 2, Authentication Protocol, Zulu 99. As alarms began echoing through military installations worldwide, Ava noticed something on Mark's uniform, a tiny spot of something that looked like dried coffee, but had the wrong color, wrong texture. "Mark, don't move," she said sharply. Everyone froze. She approached slowly, pulling out a UV light from her tactical vest. Under the light, the spot glowed. "Isotope marker. You've been tagged." "Tagged?" Mark's voice cracked. "What does that mean?" "It means Clara Voss marked you as a tracking beacon. She knew you'd be questioned, knew you'd be brought somewhere secure." Ava turned to Cole. "We need to evacuate. Now!" The lights cut out. Emergency power kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red. But in that moment of darkness, Ava had heard it, the subtle change in air pressure. That meant something had breached the room's hermetic seal. "Contact!" one of the Secret Service agents shouted, but the smoke grenade was already deployed, filling the room with dense gray fog. Ava moved on instinct, grabbing the president and pulling him behind the conference table as bullets started flying. Not regular bullets, she realized from the sound, but tranquilizers. They wanted prisoners, not bodies. "Northeast corner," she hissed to Cole, who had materialized beside them. "Service tunnel behind the projection screen." "That's not on any schematic. It is if you know where to look. Move." They crawled through the smoke, Ava leading her internal compass, unerring even in chaos. Behind them, she could hear systematic movement-trained operatives securing the room. These weren't random terrorists. This was military precision. The service tunnel was barely 3 feet wide, designed for cable runs rather than people. They squeezed through the president's breathing harsh in the confined space. Behind them, shouts indicated their escape route had been discovered. "Major!" Shepard gasped. "If they capture me, they won't." She pulled out her phone, its screen cracked but functional. With 3 taps, she activated something she'd hoped never to use. "All Night Wraith protocols active. Authorization Omega-77. Throughout the building systems she'd quietly infiltrated over the past 18 months, came alive. Doors locked, elevators froze, fire suppression systems activated in specific patterns, creating barriers of foam and water. The White House became a maze of her design. They emerged in a sub-basement she'd mapped during her janitor reconnaissance, a place that officially didn't exist. Waiting there was someone else who officially didn't exist, Master Sergeant Pike from the flight, but now in full combat gear. "Master Sergeant." The president looked bewildered. "You were a passenger." "I was her backup, sir," Pike said simply. "Have been for 6 months. She didn't know, of course, but someone at the Pentagon thought Night Wraith needed a guardian angel." Ava stared at him, pieces clicking into place. "Your grandson who wants to be a pilot is at the Air Force Academy, graduating next month." Pike smiled grimly. "But watching your 6 seemed like better use of my retirement than actual retirement." Another explosion rocked the building above them. Cole's radio crackled with reports multiple breaches coordinated assault, but the attacking force was being hampered by Ava's electronic warfare. "We need to move," Cole insisted. "Marine 1 is standing by." "No." Ava was reading her phone data streams, telling a story. "That's what they expect. Victor wants a grand gesture, something visible." She looked up. "Sir, who else knows about the continuity bunker?" Shepard's eyes widened. "Maybe 12 people in the world." Clara Voss made it 13. She pulled the location from the classified servers she accessed through Mark's tagged presence. She showed them her screen satellite imagery of a nondescript building in Virginia, surrounded by what looked like federal vehicles. "It's a trap. They're waiting for you there." "Then where? Economy parking at Dulles." The answer surprised everyone, including Ava herself. There's a car there I've kept for 3 years. Untraceable, unremarkable, invisible. You want to put the president in some random car? Cole looked apoplectic. I want to put him exactly where no one would look for him. She turned to Pike. You still remember how to run interference? Muscle memory, Major. He checked his weapon. Though I'm not as fast as I was in 91. You don't need to be fast. You need to be smart. She pulled up building schematics. Take Mark with you. He's still tagged, they'll follow that signal. Wait, Mark protested. I didn't sign up for… You signed up the moment you decided to humiliate someone in seat 22C, Pike said firmly. Now you get to make it right. Consider it economy-class redemption. The sound of approaching boots echoed through the tunnel. Ava made a decision that would have court-martialed her if anyone survived to file charges. Mr. President, I need you to trust me completely. Take off your jacket and tie. Major. Now, sir. As Shepard complied, she pulled out a maintenance worker's coveralls from a supply closet. Put these on. Cole lose the earpiece and the suit jacket. You're now his supervisor. She looked at Pike. Give us 15 minutes, then make noise. Lots of it. Copy that. Pike turned to Mark. Hope you can run in those dress shoes. They split up, Pike and Mark heading toward the main complex, while Ava led the president and Cole through service tunnels that weren't supposed to connect, but did if you knew which walls were false and which locks were purely decorative. 20 minutes later, they emerged in a parking garage 3 blocks away. The President of the United States, leader of the free world, was now indistinguishable from any other maintenance worker heading home after a late shift. This is insane, Cole muttered. This is invisible, Ava corrected. The same kind of invisible I've been for 3 years. She led them to a beat-up Honda Civic that had seen better decades. Sir, you're going to ride in the back on the floor covered by this blanket. The president doesn't hide on the floor. The president does whatever keeps him alive, Shepard interrupted, already climbing in. Major Reyes has saved my life twice. I'm not questioning her methods now. As they drove through D.C. streets filled with emergency vehicles racing toward the White House, Ava's phone buzzed. Pike's number. Package delivered. His voice came through strained but alive. They took the bait. Mark actually sold it pretty well. Turns out fear makes him a decent actor. Where are they taking him? Tracking now. Looks like Georgetown, Warehouse District. Copy. Go dark until I signal. She drove carefully, obeying every traffic law invisible in the chaos. But her mind was racing, assembling pieces of a puzzle that kept shifting. Victor had exposed her, attacked the White House, captured what he thought was the president's location. But why? What was the real objective? Her phone chimed. A message from an unknown number, but she recognized the encryption signature. She pulled over, ignoring Cole's protests. The message was simple. Check your 6 o'clock Night Wraith. She looked in the rearview mirror. 3 cars back, a black SUV that had been with them since they left the garage. As she watched, the driver raised a hand, not a threat, but a greeting. That's impossible, she breathed. What? Cole demanded. That SUV. The driver is supposed to be dead. She made a sudden turn, testing. The SUV followed. Captain Elena Ward. The airline pilot. Former Navy intelligence before she was a pilot. Officially killed in a training accident 5 years ago. Ava's hands tightened on the wheel. She's Ghost Protocol like me. We've been played. I don't understand. Neither did I until now. She pulled into an empty lot, the SUV following. Sir, stay down. Cole weapons ready, but don't fire unless I signal. Ward emerged from the SUV, hands visible, but stance ready for combat. She looked different out of her captain's uniform. Harder, sharper, dangerous. Hello, Ava. Elena. Ava stayed behind the car door, using it as a shield. 5 years is a long time to be dead. 3 years is pretty long, too. Ward smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Though you did it better. I never thought to hide in economy class. Why are you here? Same reason you are, Victor, except I've been tracking him from inside his organization. The revelation hit like a physical blow. You're Crimson Wing. I'm whoever I need to be to complete the mission. Ward took a step closer. The attack on the White House, I fed them false intel. The president was never the target. Then what? Ava stopped, understanding flooding through her. Me. I'm the target. Everything else is distraction. You're half right. Ward pulled out a tablet showing a complex diagram. You're not the target. You're the key. Victor needs you alive because you're the only one who can access something he wants. I don't have access to anything. I've been nobody for 3 years. Exactly. Nobody who spent 18 months mapping every critical infrastructure point in America. Nobody who infiltrated systems just by being invisible. Nobody who has the complete picture of our vulnerabilities. Ward's expression was grave. He doesn't want to destroy America, Ava. He wants to sell it. Every weakness, every blind spot, every back door you've found, to the highest bidder. But I haven't documented. Ava stopped. Her phone. The modified phone that had been recording, analyzing, storing everything she'd observed. The isotope tag. It wasn't just for tracking. It's a data extractor. The moment it got within 3 feet of your phone, it started downloading everything. Ward checked her watch. In approximately 6 minutes, Victor will have every piece of intelligence you've gathered. Unless... Unless what? Unless you upload it somewhere else first. Somewhere secure. Somewhere he can't reach. And let me guess you have just such a place. Ward smiled, and this time it was genuine. Actually, I was thinking of something more poetic. The entertainment system on every commercial aircraft we grounded. 3,000 flying servers, all connected, all empty now that they've been purged of malware. Ava stared at her. You want me to upload classified intelligence to commercial aircraft? I want you to scatter it so widely that no one person can ever have it all. Pieces of the puzzle distributed globally, useless alone, but invaluable together. Ward held out a device. This will fragment the data, encrypt each piece differently, make it so it would take centuries to reassemble without the key. And who has the key? You do, in your father's dog tags. Ava's hand went instinctively to her chest. How do you... Because I helped design the tags, Ava. Your father wasn't just a pararescue jumper. He was part of the original Ghost Protocol. The numbers on his tags, they're not military ID. They're a quantum encryption key, unbreakable, unique. The president's voice came from the car, muffled but clear. Major, I'm ordering you to trust her. Shepard sat up, and Ava saw Ward's eyes widen. She hadn't known he was there. Mr. President, Captain Ward has been reporting directly to me for 5 years, Shepard said. Every move Victor made, every plan he hatched, she fed to us. But we couldn't act without exposing her. Until today. Until you forced everyone into the light. Ava's phone buzzed. 4 minutes until Victor's download was complete. She looked at Ward, at the president, at Cole, who looked as confused as she felt. If I do this, if I scatter the intelligence, how do we stop Victor? We don't, Ward said simply. He stops himself, because the moment the data fragments, his buyers will know he doesn't have what he promised. And in his world, that's a death sentence. 3 minutes. Ava took the device, her fingers flying across its interface. On her phone, she could see Victor's extraction accelerating, pulling terabytes of data she didn't even remember collecting. Infrastructure maps, personnel files, communication protocols, vulnerability assessments. 3 years of being invisible had made her the most dangerous intelligence asset in the world. "There's one problem," she said as she worked. "The aircraft systems are all isolated now. I can't access them remotely." "No," Ward agreed. "But Lily can." The flight attendant who's actually Lieutenant Jennifer Liu Air Force Intelligence. She's been your guardian angel on every flight for 6 months. Ward smiled at Ava's expression. "You weren't as alone as you thought." 2 minutes. Ava made the connection routing through military satellites, bouncing signals off civilian towers. Around the world, grounded aircraft suddenly came alive, not their engines, just their entertainment systems, screens flickering with code that disappeared as quickly as it appeared, each plane receiving a tiny fragment of the whole. 1 minute. Victor's download hit a wall, the data suddenly fragmenting, scattering like digital confetti across the globe. Ava could imagine his rage, his realization that he'd been outplayed. Her phone rang. She knew who it would be. "You think you've won?" Victor's voice was cold fury. "I think I've learned something," Ava replied. "Being nobody doesn't mean being alone. It means being everyone everywhere all at once." "This isn't over." "No, it's not. But your buyers are already calling, aren't they? Wondering why their purchased intelligence just turned into digital smoke. How long before they come collecting?" The line went dead. Ward stepped forward. "He'll run now. Go to ground. We might not find him for years." "That's okay," Ava said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. "I'm good at waiting. And now he knows I'm not dead, not gone, just invisible. Every economy seat on every flight could be Night Wraith. Every janitor, every service worker, every person he dismisses as nobody could be watching." The president emerged fully from the car. "Major Reyes, I'm ordering you back to active duty." "With respect, sir, I decline." Everyone stared. Cole started to protest, but Shepard raised a hand. "May I ask why?" "Because Night Wraith was a legend. Ava Reyes is nobody, and nobody sees everything." She looked at Ward. "Besides, someone needs to keep flying commercial keep watching from 22C. And if we need you, you know where to find me, sir. Economy class worn hoodie invisible in plain sight." She smiled. "Though next time maybe send the backup before someone slams water on my tray." Pike's voice crackled through her phone. "Package is secure. Warehouse contains surprising number of surrendering Crimson Wing operatives. Seems someone sent them evidence of Victor's financial irregularities. They're talking faster than we can record." Ward raised an eyebrow. "Your work, Mark's actually," Ava admitted. "Turns out when you give someone a chance at redemption, they sometimes surprise you." He recognized one of the operatives from first class, a frequent flyer he'd served before. Made the connection, sent the information to Pike while playing decoy. "A flight attendant saved the day." Cole sounded incredulous. "An observant person in a service position saw what others missed," Ava corrected. "It happens more than you'd think when you stop dismissing people as nobody." Sirens were approaching the real response, finally mobilizing. In minutes, this quiet lot would be swarming with Secret Service, FBI, military personnel. The invisible moment was ending. "Sir," Ava said to the president, "you should probably put your suit back on." As Shepard changed, Ward moved closer to Ava. "You know Victor has a successor already in place, someone we haven't identified." "I know." Ava thought of Clara Voss, who'd vanished so completely. "But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, 837 people are having dinner with their families. 3,000 aircraft will fly safely tomorrow. And somewhere in economy class, someone's watching who everyone else ignores." "You're really going back to that life after all this?" Ava touched her father's dog tags one last time. "It's not going back. It's going forward, just from seat 22C instead of a cockpit." The motorcade arrived in a storm of lights and sirens. In seconds, the president was surrounded by protection coal, taking charge with visible relief. But Shepard paused before entering the armored limousine, looking back at Ava. "How will I know if you're on my flight?" "You won't," Ava said simply. "That's the point." As the motorcade pulled away, Ward headed back to her SUV. "I'll be disappearing too. Different kind of invisible than yours, but same principle." "Where will you go?" "Wherever someone dismisses a middle-aged woman as harmless." She smiled. "Amazing how much people reveal when they think you don't matter." "Stay safe, Elena." "You too, Ava. Or should I say nobody? Nobody works." Alone in the lot, Ava looked at her battered Honda Civic. In the distance, she could see planes beginning to move at Reagan National, the ground stop lifted normal operations resuming. Tomorrow, thousands of people would board flights never knowing how close they'd come to disaster, never knowing that their safety had been preserved by someone they'd dismiss without a second thought. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lily Lieutenant Liu with a flight manifest. Tomorrow, 6 a.m. New York to Los Angeles. Seat 22C was available. Below the manifest was a note. Suspicious passenger in first class. Might be nothing, might be everything. Your call. Ava typed back. Book it. She got into the Civic and drove toward her economy apartment where a new gray hoodie waited. Tomorrow she'd be nobody again. Invisible, dismissed, overlooked. Exactly where she could see everything. The ghost was dead. The legend was exposed. But nobody. Nobody was eternal, omnipresent, and watching from seats that powerful people never noticed. Victor thought he'd won by exposing her. Instead, he'd just reminded the world that heroes looked like everyone and no one, that protection came from places privilege never looked, that the person you mocked in economy might be the reason your plane landed safely. As she drove through the DC night, Ava smiled. Tomorrow she'd buy coffee at the airport with cash board last settle into 22C and watch. Always watching, always ready, always nobody. It was, she decided, the perfect cover for somebody who'd already died twice, for people who'd never know her name. The 6 a.m. flight to Los Angeles was delayed 47 minutes, which gave Ava more time to observe the suspicious passenger Lily had flagged. He sat in first-class lounge, sipping champagne at an hour when most people needed coffee. His Italian suit too perfect, his relaxation too practiced. Everything about him screamed wealth and privilege, but his eyes never stopped moving, cataloging faces, exits, security positions. Ava adjusted her new gray hoodie and settled deeper into the uncomfortable plastic chair at Gate 43, just another tired traveler among hundreds. Her phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Lily, who was pre-flighting the aircraft. Passenger's name is David Chen. Tech entrepreneur, clean record, but something's off about his carry-on. X-ray showed unusual density patterns. She typed back, copy, maintaining distance, and a family with 3 young children collapsed into seats nearby, the parents looking exhausted before the flight even began. The mother was trying to manage a crying infant, while the father corralled 2 hyperactive boys. Ava watched Chen's reaction, disgust quickly hidden, but unmistakable. He made a show of calling someone complaining loudly enough for others to hear about declining travel standards and certain people who shouldn't fly. The words were achingly familiar, echoing Grant Mercer's performance from yesterday. But where Mercer had been genuinely arrogant, Chen's complaint felt rehearsed, designed to establish a persona. "Excuse me." A voice at her shoulder made Ava turn. An elderly woman with a walker stood there breathing hard from the effort of moving through the terminal. "Is anyone sitting here? All yours," Ava said, helping the woman settle into the adjacent seat. "Thank you, dear. These old bones aren't what they used to be." The woman smiled, pulling out knitting needles and yarn. "Flying to see my grandson graduate from USC, first in our family to finish college." "Congratulations," Ava said, but her attention stayed on Chen, who'd just received a phone call that made him stiffen. He stood abruptly, heading toward the restroom, his carry-on clutched tightly. "You know," the elderly woman continued, her needles clicking rhythmically, "that young man's been watching you for the past 20 minutes. Ava's eyes snapped to the woman reassessing. The knitting was perfect, but those hands were too steady, too strong for someone who needed a walker. "Although," the woman added with a small smile, "you've been watching him longer, since he arrived, actually." "Who are you?" Ava asked quietly. "Margaret Thompson, retired schoolteacher from Omaha." The needles never stopped moving. "Also Colonel Thompson, Defense Intelligence Agency, supposedly retired, but apparently needed for one more mission." She glanced at Ava. "You're not the only one who learned to hide in plain sight, Major Reyes." "I don't know what you're—" "Please. After yesterday's display, every intelligence agency in the world knows Night Wraith is alive. The smart ones also figured out you'd go right back to doing what you do best, watching from the cheap seats." Thompson's eyes tracked Chen returning from the restroom. "He knows too. That's why he's here. He's Crimson Wing. Worse, he's the buyer Victor disappointed. Lost 40 million when the intelligence scattered. He thinks you can reassemble it." Chen was approaching the gate agent, his charm turned up to maximum, clearly angling for something. The agent laughed, nodded, typed something into her computer. "He just upgraded someone to first class," Thompson observed. "Creating an empty seat next to him. Want to bet who gets the offer?" Before Ava could respond, the gate agent's voice echoed through the area. "Passenger Reyes, Ava Reyes, please approach the counter." Every muscle in Ava's body tensed. She'd booked the ticket under her real name. Hiding it now was pointless after yesterday's exposure, but hearing it called publicly still sent adrenaline flooding through her system. "Steady," Thompson murmured. "He's fishing. If you don't go, you confirm his suspicion that you're watching him." Ava stood moving with the tired shuffle of someone who'd been up too early. At the counter, the gate agent smiled brightly. "Ms. Reyes, you've been selected for a complimentary upgrade to first class, seat 2B. "That's very kind, but I prefer my current seat." The agent's smile faltered. "It's first class. Free drinks, better food, actual legroom. I'm comfortable where I am, thank you." Chen appeared at her shoulder, smooth as silk. "I couldn't help but overhear. Please take the upgrade. I insist." His smile was perfect practiced. "After what you went through yesterday, you deserve some comfort." There it was, the acknowledgement, the confirmation he knew exactly who she was. Ava met his eyes directly for the first time. Behind the charm was something cold, calculating. "Yesterday taught me that comfort can be dangerous," she said simply. "I'll keep my seat." How philosophical. His hand moved toward her arm, stopping just short of contact when she shifted slightly. "Though I wonder if you're not being a bit paranoid. Lightning doesn't strike twice." "No, but stupidity does." His smile tightened. "Excuse me. You're excused." She turned and walked back to her seat, feeling his eyes burning into her back. Thompson looked up from her knitting. "Well played, though you've just confirmed his suspicions. He was already certain. Now he's just angry." Ava settled back into her seat. Anger makes people sloppy. Boarding began 20 minutes later, families with children first. The exhausted parents from earlier struggled past with their 3 kids, the mother now managing all 3, while the father hauled carry-ons. One of the boys, maybe 6 years old, dropped his action figure right at Chen's feet. "Sorry, mister," the boy said, reaching for it. Chen's foot came down on the toy, not quite crushing it, but pinning it. "You should be more careful." "Hey," the father started, then saw something in Chen's expression that made him pull his son back. "Come on, buddy. We'll get it later." "But Dad, now." They hurried past the boy, crying. Chen kicked the toy aside, his mask slipping for just a moment, revealing genuine cruelty beneath. Ava memorized that expression. It was the real him, the truth beneath the performance. "Monster," Thompson muttered. "Useful monster," Ava corrected. "He just showed us who he really is." When economy boarding was called, Ava joined the line, noting how Chen positioned himself to watch her. As she passed his seat, he spoke just loud enough for her to hear. $40 million, Major. That's what your little stunt cost me." She kept walking. Seat 22C welcomed her like an old friend. The same worn fabric, the same limited legroom, the same view of everyone who thought they were unobserved. Lily appeared professional in her flight attendant uniform, but her eyes carrying a message she'd gotten Ava's earlier text about Chen. "Can I get you anything before takeoff?" Lily asked. "Just water, in a plastic cup, not a bottle." Lily's lips twitched, remembering yesterday's incident with Mark. "Of course." The middle seat beside Ava remained empty until the last possible moment, when a harried-looking man in medical scrubs practically fell into it. Sorry, he gasped. "Got called in for emergency surgery, just finished. Have to get to LA for another one." "Busy day," Ava observed. "Trauma surgeon," he explained, already pulling out his phone to review files. "Some days you save everyone, some days." He trailed off, and she saw the exhaustion that went bone-deep, the weight of lives in his hands. "You do what you can," she offered. He looked at her, surprised by the understanding in her voice. Yeah, exactly." As the plane pushed back, Ava noticed Chen had recruited allies. The man in 3A kept turning around to look at economy. The woman in 1C was pretending to read, but her eyes tracked every movement. They were good professional, but not invisible enough. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Good morning, folks. This is Captain Rebecca Martinez. We've got smooth skies ahead to Los Angeles." There was a pause, then. "We're honored to have some special passengers aboard today, including someone who reminded us all yesterday that heroes come in all shapes and seats." Chen's head snapped up. Several passengers started looking around, phones appearing. Ava slouched lower, pulling her hood up, but the damage was done. "Is that her?" someone whispered. "The Night Wraith woman, check 22C, another voice suggested. "That's where she was yesterday." The trauma surgeon beside her glanced over, did a double take. "Holy shit, you're nobody," Ava said firmly. "I'm nobody." "But yesterday was yesterday. Today I'm just trying to get to LA." He studied her for a moment, then nodded, understanding something in her tone. "Sure. Nobody. Got it." The plane reached cruising altitude without incident, but Ava could feel the energy building. Chen was planning something. She could see it in the way he kept checking his watch, the way his Confederates were positioning themselves. Then the announcement came. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some technical difficulties with our entertainment system." Captain Martinez sounded puzzled. "It seems to be playing something." Every screen in the plane flickered to life simultaneously. Ava's blood went cold as she recognized what was playing security footage from yesterday's attack on the White House, but not from news cameras. This was internal feed classified angles that should never have been accessible. And there she was, visible in frame after frame, protecting the president, activating protocols, being exactly who she'd claimed not to be. Chen stood up, in his voice carrying through the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we have a genuine American hero among us. Major Ava Reyes, the Night Wraith herself, is sitting in seat 22C. The cabin erupted. Phones swung toward her like weapons passengers standing to get better angles. The trauma surgeon pressed himself against the window, trying to give her space, but there was nowhere to go. Please, Chen continued moving down the aisle with predatory grace. Let's show our appreciation for someone who saved the president yesterday. The applause started uncertainly, then built. But Ava heard the trap in it, forced recognition, manufactured attention, everything she'd spent 3 years avoiding. Sit down, sir. Lily appeared, blocking Chen's path. FAA regulations require— Oh, come now. Chen smiled. Surely we can make an exception for— The plane lurched. Not turbulence, Ava knew that feeling. This was mechanical, sudden wrong. The oxygen masks dropped simultaneously, yellow plastic dancing in the chaos of screaming passengers. This is not a drill. Captain Martinez's voice was tight with control. Put on your masks immediately. Ava had hers on in 2 seconds, then helped the surgeon with his. Through the chaos, she saw Chen still standing, mask in hand, but not wearing it, his confederates similarly unaffected. They'd known this was coming. They had supplemental oxygen hidden somewhere. Thompson was 4 rows back, her mask on, but Ava could see her reaching for something in her knitting bag. The elderly woman act had evaporated entirely. Chen approached through the chaos, passengers too panicked to stop him. $40 million, Major, or everyone on this plane dies. The oxygen will run out in 12 minutes, Ava calculated quickly. We're at 39,000 feet. You can't— I can, I have. Unless you reconstruct the intelligence you scattered. Every piece, every fragment. That's impossible. It's spread across 3,000 aircraft. But the key is in your father's dog tags, isn't it? His hand moved toward her chest, but she caught his wrist. Their strength matched for a moment. You kill everyone on this plane, you get nothing. I lose nothing. These people mean nothing to me. He pulled free, stepping back. You have 11 minutes to decide. Their lives or your father's legacy. He returned to first class, leaving Ava surrounded by terrified passengers slowly consuming oxygen that wouldn't last. The trauma surgeon was checking on nearby passengers, his medical training overriding panic. A mother 2 rows back was sharing her mask with her child, taking turns breathing. This was the cost of being visible, Ava realized. Yesterday's exposure hadn't just blown her cover, it had painted a target on everyone around her. Her phone, somehow still functioning, buzzed with an encrypted message. Thompson. Package in overhead bin 34C. Your birthday. Ava's birthday. 0722. She moved through the chaos, reached the bin, entered the code on a small lock she found there. Inside was a military oxygen canister and something else, a device she recognized from her Air Force days. An emergency override transmitter for aircraft systems, but using it would expose her position, absolutely, would confirm she had capabilities beyond what anyone suspected. Chen would know she was more than just a pilot, more than just intelligence. She'd reveal the full scope of Ghost Protocol. 10 minutes of oxygen left. The trauma surgeon appeared at her shoulder, having noticed her movement. What can I do? Keep people calm. Tell them to breathe slowly, shallowly. Conserve oxygen. That's not a long-term solution. It doesn't need to be. She activated the transmitter, fingers flying across its interface. The plane's computers were fighting her. Chen had installed sophisticated malware, but she'd spent 18 months learning every system on every commercial aircraft. She knew their weaknesses, their back doors, their hidden redundancies. Major Reyes, Chen's voice over the intercom. 9 minutes. I can see what you're doing. Very impressive, but it won't work without the proper codes. He was right. The system needed authentication she didn't have. Unless... She looked at the trauma surgeon. I need you to do exactly what I say, no questions. Anything. Go to first class. Tell Chen you're having a heart attack. Fall on him, grab anything in his inside jacket pocket. That's insane. You're a trauma surgeon. You know what a heart attack looks like. Sell it. He stared at her for a moment, then nodded. As he moved forward, clutching his chest, Ava typed furiously on the transmitter. She couldn't break Chen's lock, but she could build a bridge around it, create a parallel system that would restore oxygen while leaving his malware thinking it was still in control. Help, the surgeon's voice carried back. Please, The sound of a body falling. Through the chaos, she heard Chen cursing, trying to push the surgeon off. But the man was good, his performance convincing enough that even Chen's Confederates moved to help. 7 minutes of oxygen. Thompson appeared beside Ava, no longer pretending to be elderly. Status: need 30 more seconds. You've got 20. The surgeon stumbled back into economy, something clutched in his fist. He pressed it into Ava's hand, a small device like a USB drive, but more sophisticated. Military-grade encryption key. He had this, Thompson breathed. That's impossible. Those are only issued to Ghost Protocol operatives, Ava finished. He's not Crimson Wing. He's one of us. Gone rogue. The revelation hit like decompression. Chen wasn't just a buyer. He was a burned operative, someone who knew exactly how to hurt the program because he'd been part of it. She plugged the device into the transmitter. Her father's dog tags grew warm against her chest. The quantum encryption recognizing its counterpart authentication, cascading through systems. 5 minutes of oxygen. The plane's computers suddenly responded, backup oxygen systems engaging. The masks stopped dancing, pressure normalized, and passengers began breathing easier. But Ava knew this was just round 1. Chen's voice over the intercom, no longer pretending civility. Impressive, Major, but we're not done. The plane banked sharply, beginning a descent that wasn't controlled by the pilots. Chen had switched to backup malware, something deeper, harder to reach. He's diving us toward Los Angeles, Thompson said, reading her phone. Air traffic control is going insane. No? Ava studied the descent rate, the heading. Not Los Angeles. Edwards Air Force Base. He's aiming us at the experimental aircraft hangars. Those contain the next generation of strategic bombers, classified beyond classification. Ava stood. He's not trying to steal intelligence anymore. He's trying to destroy it. The trauma surgeon grabbed her arm. What do you need? I need to get to first class. That's where his people are. That's where the primary aircraft control override is, under the galley floor behind the wine storage. She looked at Thompson. Can you handle his Confederates? Thompson smiled, pulling something from her knitting bag that definitely wasn't yarn. Give me 60 seconds to get positioned. As Thompson moved forward, Ava turned to the surgeon. Keep everyone in their seats. Whatever happens next, keep them calm. How? She thought for a moment. Tell them the truth. Tell them Night Wraith is handling it. His eyes widened. You want me to blow your cover completely? Cover's already blown. Might as well use it. She moved up the aisle, passengers recognizing her now, some reaching out to touch her, as if she were a talisman against disaster. The mother who'd been sharing oxygen with her child grabbed Ava's hand. Are we going to die? Not on my watch. First class was chaos. Thompson had Chen's Confederates subdued with zip ties she'd produced from somewhere, but Chen himself stood by the cockpit door, a device in his hand that Ava recognized, a dead man's switch. Let go of this, the plane dives immediately, he said calmly. No override possible. You'll die too, Ava pointed out. I've been dead since I betrayed Ghost Protocol. This is just making it official." His eyes were hollow now, the charm completely gone. "Do you know what it's like, Major? To be invisible so long you forget you exist. To serve a country that doesn't know your name will never know your sacrifices." "Yes," Ava said simply. "I know exactly." "But you got celebrated. You got exposed as a hero." "I got exposed as a target. There's a difference." Behind Chen, through the cockpit door window, she could see Captain Martinez fighting with controls that wouldn't respond. They had maybe 3 minutes before Edwards Air Force Base had to make a decision about shooting them down. "You want to be visible?" Ava asked. "Fine. The whole world is watching now. Every phone on this plane is streaming. You're about to be the most visible person on Earth. Is that what you wanted?" "I wanted to matter." "You did matter. Every Ghost Protocol operative matters. We just don't get to see the lives we save, the disasters we prevent." She took a step closer. "But visible or invisible, crashing this plane won't change what you've become." "What's that?" "Exactly what you swore to fight against." His finger tightened on the switch. Through the windows, Ava could see F-16s forming up alongside them. Edwards had scrambled fighters. In 60 seconds, they'd have to make the call. "Major," Lily's voice calm and professional, "the air marshal wants to take the shot." Ava hadn't even noticed the marshal positioning himself, but there he was, weapon drawn, and aimed at Chen's head. One shot would drop him, but the dead man's switch would trigger. "Negative," Ava said. "Everyone hold." She pulled out her father's dog tags, holding them up so Chen could see them. "You know what these are. Not just encryption, but a reminder. My father died saving people who never knew his name. He's invisible to history, but the 3 Marines he pulled from that burning Humvee have families, children, lives that exist because he chose service over recognition." Pretty words. Truth. She unclasped the chain, holding the tags out to him. "You want visibility? Take these. Upload your consciousness to every screen in the world. Show them David Chen, Ghost Protocol operative, the man who betrayed everything." Thompson finished from behind. Chen's composure cracked. "I saved lives too. For 20 years I was invisible, protecting people who'd spit on me if they knew I existed. And then Viktor Kozlov offered me $40 million to disappear completely, to stop being nobody and start being somebody with money." His laugh was bitter. "But you scattered it all, made me nobody with nothing." "You were never nobody," Ava said softly. "You were always David Chen. The invisibility was just the job, not the person. Easy for you to say. You're Night Wraith now. Everyone knows a legend. They don't know me." She took another step closer now, within arm's reach. "They don't know I hate coffee but drink it anyway. Don't know I cry at Pixar movies. Don't know I call my mom every Sunday and lie about having a normal job." Chen's hand was shaking now. The altimeter on the wall showed they were descending through 15,000 feet. Edwards was directly ahead. "They know Night Wraith," Ava continued. "They don't know Ava Reyes, who sits in 22C and watches people being human when they think no one's looking. Who sees kindness and cruelty in equal measure and still believes the kindness matters more." "I don't," Chen's voice broke. "I don't remember who I was before the invisibility." "Then choose who to be now. In this moment, with the whole world watching, decide, are you the man who crashes a plane full of innocents, or the Ghost Protocol operative who remembers why we choose to serve 10,000 feet? The F-16s were banking away. They'd made their decision. In seconds, missiles would fire. Chen looked at the dead man's switch in his hand, then at the passengers visible through the curtain. Terrified, human, real. The mother with her child. The trauma surgeon who'd helped despite his fear. Thompson, who'd spent 5 years being invisible to catch Viktor. I can't undo what I've done, he whispered. No. But you can choose what you do next. 5,000 feet. Through the cockpit door, alarms were screaming. Captain Martinez had managed to level off slightly, but they were still descending too fast. Chen's thumb moved on the switch, not releasing it, but entering a code. The plane suddenly responded, pulling up sharply, engines roaring as Martinez regained control. They were going to clear Edwards barely, but they'd make it. The override, Chen said, exhausted. It's disabled. The F-16s swooped back into formation escort, rather than executioner. The cabin erupted in cheers, passengers sobbing with relief. But Ava kept her eyes on Chen, who looked like he'd aged a decade in the last minute. They'll arrest me, he said. Yes. I'll disappear into a federal facility, become invisible again. Maybe. Or maybe you'll help us find others who've lost their way. Show them it's possible to come back. He handed her the dead man's switch, now just an inert piece of plastic and circuits. I'm sorry about your father's tags. She looked down, realizing she'd dropped them during the confrontation. The trauma surgeon appeared, holding them out to her. These fell, he said simply. As Ava put them back on, Chen allowed Thompson to cuff him. No resistance, no more fight. Just a man who'd remembered at the last possible moment who he used to be. Captain Martinez's voice, shaky but determined. Ladies and gentlemen, we're diverting to Edwards Air Force Base for a security inspection. Please remain calm. We're safe. But the passengers weren't looking at the captain's announcement. They were looking at Ava, standing in the aisle, no longer invisible. Phones were out streaming, recording, sharing. Night Wraith was trending globally again, but this time the story was different. This time it wasn't about exposure, it was about choice. The trauma surgeon stood up. I need everyone to listen. This woman just saved all our lives, but more importantly, she showed us something. Heroes aren't just the visible ones, they're the invisible ones too, the ones who serve without recognition. He looked directly at a passenger who'd been recording everything. Whatever you post, remember that. Remember that invisible doesn't mean insignificant. As the plane descended toward Edwards, Ava made her way back to 22C. The seat felt different now, not because it had changed, but because she had. She was visible now, truly visible, not just as Night Wraith, but as herself. Lily appeared with water in a plastic cup, as requested. Major, the captain wants to know if you'd like to land in the cockpit. No, I'll land where I belong. She gestured to 22C. Right here. Even though everyone knows who you are now. Ava thought about Chen, about the price of invisibility, about the choice between being nobody and being somebody. Especially because everyone knows. Someone needs to show them that heroes don't need first class. They just need purpose. As Edwards Air Force Base rose to meet them, surrounded by emergency vehicles and military personnel, Ava realized the truth. She'd never really been invisible. She'd been selectively visible, choosing when and how to be seen. And now, with the whole world watching, she was choosing to be seen as herself, not the legend, not the ghost, but the woman who'd learned that the best view wasn't from nowhere or everywhere, but from exactly where she was supposed to be. The plane touched down smoothly, Captain Martinez, showing that Navy pilots never really forget their training. As they taxied, Ava saw the reception committee general's intelligence officials' media held back by barriers. Thompson leaned over from the row behind. They'll want to debrief you, publicly, make you a symbol. Let them try, Ava said. I've got a return flight booked. Same seat. You're really going to keep flying commercial? Keep sitting in economy. Someone has to watch. Someone has to see what others miss. She turned to look at Thompson. Besides, you never know when the person next to you might save the world, or destroy it, or just need someone to notice they exist. The plane stopped. The doors would open soon, and Night Wraith would have to face the cameras again. But Ava Reyes, the woman in 22C, had already decided visibility was a tool, not an identity. She'd be visible when needed, invisible when necessary, and always watching from the seat everyone overlooked. Because that's where the real stories happened. That's where humanity showed itself. That's where heroes were born, one flight at a time. The debrief at Edwards lasted 4 hours, but Ava's mind was elsewhere, fixed on something Chen had said before they'd taken him away. "Victor has one more player," he'd whispered as federal agents led him past her. "Someone you trust. Someone who's been watching you watch everyone else." Now sitting in a sterile conference room, while generals and intelligence directors argued about protocol, those words echoed like a warning. General Morrison was insisting she accept a security detail. CIA Deputy Director Sarah Chen wanted her in protective custody. The president, participating via secure video, seemed torn between awarding her another medal and ordering her into witness protection. "With respect," Ava finally interrupted. "You're all missing the point. I'm not the target anymore. I'm the bait." The room fell silent. On screen, President Shepard leaned forward. "Explain." "Chen's capture my complete exposure. Victor planned for this. He wanted me visible because it forces me to be predictable. Security details have patterns. Safe houses have locations. The moment I accept protection, I become trackable." "So what do you propose?" Morrison asked. "I disappear in plain sight. Go back to flying commercial, sitting in economy, being nobody who everybody now knows is somebody." She stood, decision made. "If Victor's last player wants me, they'll have to come into my world." "That's insane," Cole protested. "You'll be completely vulnerable." "I'll be completely aware. There's a difference." Her phone buzzed. A message from Lily, still on the plane. "Passengers refusing to deplane until you come back. They want to thank you." Morrison saw her check the message. "Major, you can't seriously be thinking about my flight to LA was interrupted. I intend to complete it." She moved toward the door. "Besides, those people deserve to know their lives mattered enough to save." The walk back to the aircraft felt like crossing a bridge between worlds. Behind her, the military-industrial complex with its protocols and hierarchies. Ahead, a Boeing 737 full of ordinary people who'd just survived the extraordinary. As she climbed the air stairs, the cabin erupted in applause. But it wasn't the orchestrated kind Chen had manufactured earlier. This was raw, genuine, overwhelming. The mother from row 24 was crying, holding her child tight. The trauma surgeon stood at attention, a gesture of respect from one lifesaver to another. "Please," Ava said, voice carrying through the cabin. "I need you all to listen." The applause died down, replaced by attentive silence. "What happened today happened because someone knew who I was, where I'd be. That knowledge made you all targets." She moved down the aisle slowly, making eye contact with as many passengers as possible. "I can't take that back. But I can tell you this: you survived because you helped each other. The surgeon who risked his life, the captain who fought for control, the flight attendant who stayed calm, the mother who shared her oxygen. You saved yourselves. I just helped." "But you're Night Wraith," someone called out. "You're a hero." "I'm someone who sits in 22C and pays attention. Today you all paid attention. You all became heroes." She paused at her row, looking at the empty seat. "The question is, what do you do tomorrow?" An elderly man in 17A raised his hand. "I run a small airline. Charter flights, nothing fancy. If you ever need to fly without fanfare, you call me." He handed her a business card with shaking hands. "No charge ever." "I appreciate that, but—" "No buts," the trauma surgeon interrupted. "We all owe you. Let us pay it forward." One by one, passengers started offering what they had. A tech worker promised to help secure her communications. A lawyer offered pro bono services. A teacher said she'd tell Ava's story to her students, the real story about service and sacrifice, not just the viral videos. It was overwhelming and humbling, and exactly what Ava hadn't expected. These people who hours ago had been strangers ignoring each other were now a community forged by shared trauma and survival. Captain Martinez emerged from the cockpit. Major Reyes Edwards has cleared us to continue to LA, if the passengers agree. It's unconventional, but... She smiled slightly. Nothing about today has been conventional. The vote was unanimous. They would complete the flight together, finishing what they'd started. As the plane prepared for takeoff again, Ava noticed someone new in first class. A woman in a federal marshal's uniform, presumably Chen's replacement. But something about her posture, the way she held her coffee cup, triggered a memory. Clara Voss. The corporate consultant from yesterday's flight who'd vanished. The one who'd marked Mark with the isotope tracker. She'd changed her appearance, darker hair, different makeup, but those hands, that specific way of holding a cup with her pinky slightly extended, was unmistakable. Ava's blood went cold. Victor's last player wasn't coming for her. She was already here. The plane lifted off, climbing back into California airspace. Ava needed to act, but couldn't cause panic. Couldn't let Clara know she'd been recognized. She pulled out her phone, typing a message to Thompson, who was being debriefed at Edwards. Corporate consultant from yesterday is on plane. Federal Marshal uniform. First class. Thompson's response was immediate. That's impossible. We have her on camera leaving the airport. Body double. This is her. Can't scramble fighters again. Politics. Handle it quietly. Quietly. On a plane full of traumatized passengers with every phone ready to record. Ava almost laughed at the impossibility of it. She stood moving toward the forward lavatory, which would take her past Clara. As she walked, she caught Lily's eye, mouthing one word: trouble. Lily, trained intelligence officer beneath the flight attendant facade, understood immediately. She began a service routine that would position her strategically. Clara didn't look up as Ava passed, but her hand shifted, revealing the edge of something under her marshal's jacket. Not a standard service weapon, something smaller, more specialized. A paralytic injector, Ava guessed. One touch, and she'd be unconscious, controllable, transportable. In the lavatory, Ava assessed her options. She couldn't fight Clara without endangering everyone. Couldn't expose her without proof. Couldn't call for help without Clara potentially taking hostages. She needed a different approach. She thought about Chen's words about visibility and invisibility, about the choice to be seen. Then she smiled, understanding what she needed to do. Returning to her seat, she did something unprecedented. She started talking to everyone around her, not about the danger, but about their lives. She learned the teenager in 22B was terrified of flying, but had to get to LA for his grandmother's funeral. The businessman in 23C had just lost his job and was flying to an interview that could save his house. The retired teacher in 21E was visiting her daughter who'd just had a baby. "Why are you asking?" the teacher wondered. "Because for too long I've watched without connecting, seen without being seen. I want to know the people I'm sharing this space with." The word spread through economy night. Wraith was actually talking to people, learning their names, their stories. Phones came out, but not to record, to share photos of families, pets, dreams. Within minutes, Seat 22C had become the center of an impromptu therapy session, survivors bonding over more than just survival. Clara had to notice. Had to see that her target was surrounded by witnesses, protected not by guards, but by genuine human connection. Every person Ava talked to became a shield not of bodies, but of attention. "You know what I miss most about being invisible," Ava said, loud enough for her voice to carry. "The ability to just observe without consequence. Now every action has weight. Every word gets analyzed." "Must be exhausting," the teacher sympathized. "It is. But you know what's more exhausting? Pretending to be someone you're not. Wearing a face that doesn't belong to you." She saw Clara stiffen slightly. The marshal's hand moved to her weapon, but Lily was there offering coffee, blocking her draw. "Like that federal marshal," Ava continued conversationally. "She's trying so hard to look official, but she's holding her coffee cup wrong. Real marshals never use their pinky finger. It's trained out of them at Glencoe. Always ready for weapon deployment." The cabin went quiet. Everyone turned to look at Clara, who stood slowly, mask slipping. "Very clever, Major." Clara's accent was different now, Eastern European bleeding through. "But you've just endangered everyone here." "Have I? Or have I just made it impossible for you to act without hundreds of witnesses?" Ava stood as well, keeping rows of seats between them. "See, that's the thing about visibility, it works both ways. I have a weapon. You have a paralytic injector with maybe 3 doses. I count 47 passengers between you and me, plus crew." Ava smiled. "Math doesn't work in your favor." Clara's eyes darted around, calculating. The trauma surgeon stood up, medical bag in hand. Several other passengers followed suit, forming an unconscious barrier. "You people don't understand," Clara snarled. "She's not a hero. She's a weapon. A tool of a government that treats you all as expendable." "Maybe," the businessman from 23C said. "But she saved us today. What have you done except threaten us?" "I'm trying to free you from the illusion." "Lady," the teenager in 22B interrupted, "we just survived a hijacking. We're kind of over illusions." The moment balanced on a knife's edge. Clara's hand tightened on her weapon, but she was surrounded now, not by heroes, but by ordinary people who'd decided enough was enough. Then Captain Martinez's voice cut through. "Federal agents, we have a situation in the cabin. Immediate assistance requested upon landing." Clara's face went white. She hadn't counted on the cockpit having a discreet alarm system. One Chen's hack hadn't disabled because it was analog, not digital old-school technology, invisible to modern threats. 5 minutes to landing, Martinez continued. "All passengers please remain seated and calm." "You think you've won," Clara said to Ava. "But Victor has resources you can't imagine. He'll never stop hunting you." "Then I'll never stop watching," Ava replied simply. "From 22C or wherever else I need to be." Clara made her choice, then not the smart choice, but the desperate one. She pulled the injector, lunging forward. But she'd forgotten about the trauma surgeon who'd spent his career reading body language for signs of distress. His medical bag swung up, catching Clara's wrist, sending the injector spinning. Lily moved with practiced efficiency, restraining Clara with zip ties that appeared from nowhere. Within seconds, the threat was neutralized, handled not by Night Wraith, but by ordinary people protecting each other. As they descended toward LAX, now surrounded by federal vehicles, Ava realized something profound. She'd spent 3 years being invisible, then been forced into visibility. But the real power wasn't in either state. It was in the ability to choose, moment by moment, whether to be seen. The landing was smooth, the arrest efficient. Clara was led away, cursing in 3 languages, promising Victor's vengeance. The other passengers deplaned slowly, each stopping to touch Ava's shoulder, shake her hand, or simply nod. They'd been through something together, something that transcended the usual boundaries of air travel. "So," the trauma surgeon said as he passed, "same flight next week. Different flight, same seat." Ava confirmed. "I might book 22B, if that's okay." It's a free country, mostly. As the plane emptied, Lily sat down in 22A. You know this isn't over. Victor's still out there. I know, but something changed today. Ava looked at the empty cabin, seeing ghosts of all the flights she'd taken, all the people she'd watched. I'm not alone anymore. Every person on this flight, everyone who watched the streams, they're all part of it now. They're all watching from their own 22Cs. An army of observers, a community of people who understand that invisible doesn't mean insignificant, that economy doesn't mean unimportant, that service doesn't require recognition. Her phone rang. General Morrison, predictably. Major, we need you back at... Sir, with respect, I have a flight to catch. Another flight. Are you insane? No, sir, I'm consistent. There's a red-eye to New York tonight. Seat 22C is available. Ava. General Victor made a mistake. He thought exposing me would make me vulnerable. Instead, it showed everyone that heroes aren't special people in special places. They're ordinary people who choose to pay attention. There was a long pause. Then Morrison chuckled. You're going to keep doing this, aren't you? Flying commercial, sitting in economy, watching for threats. Someone has to, sir. But now I won't be doing it alone. Every flight has someone watching now, someone ready. Chen's revelation. Clara's capture, they showed people what to look for. And if Victor comes for you personally, then he'll have to do it in full view of everyone. No more shadows, no more invisibility. He wanted me exposed, fine, but exposure goes both ways. 6 hours later, Ava settled into seat 22C on the red-eye to New York. The passenger in 22B looked up from his book, a young Air Force cadet, probably heading home on leave. Ma'am, are you really Night Wraith? I'm someone who sits in 22C and pays attention. That's not an answer. It's the only answer that matters. The cadet considered this, then nodded. My instructor says the best warriors are the ones you never see coming. Your instructor is half right. The best warriors are the ones who help others become warriors too. As the plane pushed back from the gate, Ava noticed something different. Passengers were actually looking at each other, making eye contact, nodding greetings. The isolation of modern air travel had cracked, just a little replaced by awareness that anyone could be anyone, that the person beside you might save your life or need their life saved. Her phone had one new message from an unknown number. She expected Victor another threat, another challenge. Instead, it was from Mark, the flight attendant, who'd humiliated her just 2 days ago. Starting flight attendant retraining tomorrow. Asked for economy sections only. Someone needs to watch from the aisles while you watch from 22C. Thank you for showing me who I really am. Ava smiled, deleting the message. No trail, no evidence, just another invisible person choosing to see and be seen. The plane lifted into the night sky, carrying 200 souls toward New York. Among them, a legend sat in economy hood up watching. But she wasn't alone anymore. In 15D, a teacher who'd recognized the signs of abuse in a young passenger was discreetly alerting the crew. In 8A, a businessman who'd noticed suspicious luggage was texting airport security. In 31F, a grandmother who'd overheard a conversation about smuggling was taking notes. They were all Night Wraith now in their own ways, all watching from their own versions of 22C. Victor had wanted to expose one hero to destroy her. Instead, he'd created hundreds. As the lights dimmed for the overnight flight, Ava touched her father's dog tags one last time. Service over status, she whispered, his motto becoming hers. Then she pulled out the safety card, pretending to read, while actually observing everyone ready for whatever came next. Because that's what heroes did. Not the visible ones who got medals and recognition, but the invisible ones who sat in economy and saved the world one flight at a time. The ones who understood that the best view wasn't from first class or the cockpit, but from seat 22C, where humanity showed itself honestly, where threats revealed themselves carelessly, where courage grew quietly. Night Wraith was dead long live Night Wraith. But more importantly, Ava Reyes was alive, watching, waiting, and no longer alone. The flight continued through the night, peaceful, ordinary, unremarkable. Exactly as it should be. Somewhere over Kansas, a passenger in 3B started acting strangely, reaching repeatedly for something in his bag. 3 different people noticed discreetly, alerting the crew. The man was approached calmly. The situation resolved, he was reaching for medication, embarrassed by his anxiety disorder. "Thank you for checking," he told the flight attendant. "It's nice to know people are watching out for each other." From 22C, Ava smiled. They were learning. They were all learning. As dawn broke over New York, painting the skyline gold. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our descent. It's been a perfectly ordinary flight which these days feels extraordinary. Thank you for watching out for each other." The landing was smooth, the deplaning orderly. As Ava stood to leave, the cadet in 22B stopped her. "Ma'am, I've decided something. When I graduate, I don't want to be a fighter pilot anymore. No, I want to be intelligence, the invisible kind, the kind that sits in economy and saves lives without anyone knowing." He smiled. "The kind that knows service over status." Ava nodded, passing him a small card with nothing but an email address. "When you graduate, send me a message. I might know some people." She walked off the plane into the morning light of JFK, disappearing into the crowd of travelers. Her phone showed 17 flight options for the day, all with seat 22C available. She'd pick one at random, keeping Victor guessing, keeping herself unpredictable. But first, breakfast. The airport diner was full of the usual mixed business travelers, families, flight crews between shifts. She sat at the counter, ordered eggs and toast, normal and invisible, except for the occasional person who did a double take, wondering if she was really who they thought she was. "You're her, aren't you?" the waitress asked quietly, refilling her coffee. "Night Wraith. I'm someone who flies a lot and tips well." The waitress laughed. "Good enough for me, hon." As Ava ate, she noticed things. The businessman at the corner table supposedly reading a newspaper, but actually watching everyone who entered. The young woman with a backpack, who'd been in 3 different positions in 20 minutes, always with sight lines to the exits. The janitor who cleaned the same spot for too long, eyes tracking departures board. Any of them could be Victor's people. All of them could be innocent travelers. That was the nature of visibility. Once you started really looking, you saw patterns everywhere. Her phone buzzed. General Morrison. "Victor spotted in Prague, moving assets to intercept." She typed back, "Let him run. He's not the threat anymore." Then what is complacency? The assumption that someone else is watching. That's what Victor counted on, our blindness to each other. And now we see everything. She left money on the counter and walked back into the terminal. Gate 43 was boarding for Chicago, Gate 27 for Miami, Gate 15 for Seattle. Each flight full of potential threats and certain heroes, invisible warriors and visible helpers. She chose Dallas. No reason, no pattern, just instinct. As she boarded the gate, agent looked up, recognized her, started to upgrade her to first class. 22C is perfect, Ava said. "But I'm exactly where I need to be." The agent nodded, understanding something in Ava's tone. "Welcome aboard." As she settled into the familiar confines of 22C, Ava realized this was her life now. Not a burden or a curse, but a choice. Every flight, a mission, every passenger, a potential threat or ally, every moment an opportunity to serve without recognition. The passenger beside her, a middle-aged woman with knitting needles, looked over. "Long flight ahead." "They all are," Ava agreed. "But necessary, essential." The woman smiled, needles clicking in a pattern Ava recognized, not knitting, but code. Morse code. Spelling out, "Ghost Protocol watching." Another invisible warrior, another guardian in economy. They were everywhere now. Victor's greatest fear realized not one Night Wraith, but hundreds, thousands, all watching from seats. No one valued positions, no one respected. As Dallas rose to meet them 3 hours later, Ava's phone showed a message from President Shepard. "Thank you for your service." She deleted it without responding. Thanks were for people who needed recognition. She had something better: purpose, community, and the perfect view from seat 22C. The war with Victor would continue, but it had fundamentally changed. No longer a battle between individuals, but between ways of seeing. He believed in power through fear and invisibility through insignificance. She believed in strength through service and invisibility through choice. Time would tell who was right. But for now, Ava Reyes sat in economy class, watching the world go by, ready for whatever came next. Because that's what heroes did, the real ones, the invisible ones, the ones who knew that the best view of humanity wasn't from above or below, but from right beside it, close enough to help, invisible enough to see truth, ordinary enough to understand that everyone mattered. The plane descended toward Dallas. Another successful flight, another disaster averted by vigilance rather than violence. In seat 22C, Night. Wraith smiled, pulled her hood up, and prepared to disappear into another crowd, another flight, another chance to serve. The legend was over. The real work had just begun.